Welcome home, literally home. Yeah, because of all this sort of international curfew or whatever you want to call it, we're filming from home today. Now, some churches out there are probably open and we could probably visit some organs, but most of my colleagues and organists, they're staying at home and they're not, they're not going out, they're not going to churches. All church services have been cancelled until at least Easter here in Germany at the moment because of certain viral distribution, as it were. And we're sort of forced to stay at home a bit. So I'm going to do something today that I didn't actually ever want to do, and that's present you with this instrument here. Now, this is a grand piano. At least it looks like a grand piano, and there's a bit of a story behind it. About 6 or 7 years ago, my darling wife wanted to have a grand piano. Not that she played the piano. We didn't know each other back then. We've only known each other for 3 years now. So this is before she knew me. And maybe it was a kind of sort of premonition thing. She knew she was going to have a musician in her life at some point. Anyway. But 6 years ago, she decided to buy this instrument. And it was just mainly to be sort of an ornament in the corner of the living room, as it were. And it was never intended to be played. So skip 3 years forward. I appear in her life and wow, you've got a grand piano at home. How cool is that? I arrive for the first time, try this thing out, and it's an absolute disaster. It's unplayable. And over the last 3 years, I've sort of gradually managed to get it back to a playing sort of condition. It is playable. We can use it to make music on. It sounds hilariously old-fashioned, which is great for what we're going to do today. So here is my newly repaired grand piano at home with a bit of honky-tonk music, as it were. Ready? So what are we going to do with this magnificent instrument? Now, a lot of people who've been watching this channel for a while know that I'm normally sitting at an organ in a church playing sort of music, and sometimes I play jazzy music. In fact, I like to play jazzy music in the church. I think it's rather good fun, and the organ can do it. But something I also like to do on organs is play boogie woogie. And a lot of people request this in concert. Someone did this as a joke about 15 or 20 years ago and said, I bet you can't play boogie woogie on a church organ. And I said, oh yes, I can. I won the bet. And I've been doing it ever since. But of course, I've been playing boogie woogie piano for much longer than that. I used to actually play in a boogie woogie band, believe it or not, back in the 90s when I was a bit younger, back in the UK. So, by the way, the tap, tap, tap you hear in the background is our magnificent Labrador wandering around. Do you want to come and say hello? Come here. Come here. No, he's just staring at us. He's going to sit down. He'll appear at some point, as he always does. Anyway, back to the music. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to show you basically how you can play a bit of boogie woogie. Now, boogie woogie is, of course, a blues-based piano style, so 12-bar blues. And boogie woogie and blues in general is, of course, responsible for all modern popular music. Without the blues, there would have been no jazz, no ragtime, no boogie, no rock and roll in the 50s, no pop music, etc., etc. None of these things would have happened without the blues. Now, where the blues came from, that's an entirely new chapter all for itself. If you want to learn a little bit more about that, down below you'll find a link to my website where I've just posted a blog entry sort of going into a little bit of detail about the history of the blues. It's a rather fascinating subject, and if you are interested in more, then leave me a comment there on the website, or leave a comment after the video here, and I will probably go into that in more detail. By the way it's looking, the next few weeks are maybe going to be piano-based videos, but that's not such a bad thing, is it? By the way, before we get into the depths of all these things, don't forget to give the video a thumbs up if you're enjoying what you're seeing. And yeah, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Yeah, there's all sorts of musical videos here. And I was looking through my Google Analytics a couple of days ago just to see what's sort of, going on in YouTube. And it dawned on I came across a statistic that I'd never actually seen before. And it said that about 60% of my viewers aren't subscribed to the channel yet. People, why aren't you subscribing? Subscribe, ring the bell. You get to know about more musical stuff when we post it. Let's do a very brief bit of boogie history here. Now, boogie woogie, as I've already said, I think, is a blues-based piano style. So, 12-bar blues, we'll talk about that in a minute. But there are sort of various other styles that came from the blues. We have the ragtime. And a ragtime, just exactly like stride piano, the left hand is bouncing up and down the piano all the time. You have a bass note and a chord at the top. And the left hand bounces about. Yeah, bounces backwards and forwards at the time. Now that's a lot of work, and you've got to concentrate on what you're doing there. Allegedly, now, I'm not sure if this is true. This was told to me by an old boogie player in Chicago many years ago. Like I said, I played in a boogie band back in the 90s, and we were visiting Chicago, and an old guy who was sitting at a piano doing exactly what we wanted to do was bashing away on boogie. And he told me that it was originally, apparently, discovered because these guys couldn't be bothered bouncing up and down the piano, or they physically couldn't do it because their stomach was in the way. Now, I'm fat enough, so I can't quite get to the stomach, between stomach and keyboard. I still have a bit of air there. But these guys were, pretty big. So the right hand was sort of limited to this part of the piano, and the left hand was limited to that part of the piano. Did I say left or right? You know what I mean. The hands were limited because this was all covered by stomach. Now, whether that's true or not, I don't know. But this, it's all sort of there. It all takes place down there, yeah? And the melody all takes place up there. Whether that's true or not, I don't know, but it's a rather nice little anecdote. So, let's get into it. 12-bar blues. We're going to do it in the key of C, just to keep it easy. We'll do the simplified version of the 12-bar blues at the beginning. So that's at the beginning, 4 bars of C. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now comes F. 1, 2, and then we go back to C, 1, 2, and then we move to G, maybe F, and then C again. So there are your 12 bars. So that's 4 bars of C, 2 bars of F, 2 of C again, 2 of G, shall we say, or 1 of G, and then 1 of F, and then again at the end 2 of C. So we have 12 bars, and that's our sort of pattern that we stick to all the time. And that repeats itself over and over and over and over and over and over again, leaving the right hand free to improvise around the sort of bluesy items, as it were. We'll get to that in a minute. We're going to start by looking at the left hand. And for the left hand, we're going to use 2 fingers. We're going to use the little finger, and we're going to use the thumb. Nothing else. These 3 here, we can saw them off for today. We don't need them. We're going to use the little finger and the thumb. And the thumb gives us our rhythm, and the little finger sort of fills in a bit of cool rhythm, okay? Let's look at that in a little more detail. So here we go with the left hand in a 12-bar boogie blues. Now what we're going to do, like I said, we're going to use the 2-finger method, okay? This is a simple boogie bass. There are many variations of this, and some of them exceptionally complicated, but this is probably the easiest one. And we're going to start just with the 2 fingers, and the chord note is always going to be played by the pinky, by the little finger, and the thumb is going to alternate between the 5th and the 6th of that harmony, as it were. So in C, that will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that's the 5th, and A is the 6th, okay? So if I play those together, so 4 bars of C, okay? Already that sounds not too bad, yeah? Now, if I jump up to F, so just move my fingers up to F, and I immediately land in the right position. I have F with my pinky, and my thumb is now going to play C and D, so those are the 5th and the 6th again. So 2 bars of that. Jump back down to C, do the same thing again. 2 bars. Now we jump up to G, so I can just zoop, immediately jump up to G. Same thing again. 2 bars, and then C. Okay? That's it. It's as easy as that. We can, however, make it sound much more exciting by rolling between our 2 fingers here. Okay? Now, I can either do that in a straight style, which means what does that mean? A straight rhythm. A straight rhythm means da 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 da. Or I can do it in a swing rhythm, which is da 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 da, and so on and so on. So it's a more sort of a jumpy rhythm, but we'll stick to the straight one for now. The straight rhythm is your sort of 1950s rock and roll boogie woogie. So on and so on and so on. Okay, so we're talking sort of Jerry Lee Lewis kind of stuff, yeah? Great balls of fire, that kind of stuff, yeah? If we want to do it in a swing style, then we're sort of, the pinky comes in a little bit later. And so on and so on and so on, okay? So what's important is your thumb is driving the rhythm. Your thumb is on the beat. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And the pinky bit is just before the beat. Got it? So that's the important thing to get used to first. Your thumb is controlling the rhythm and your pinky is sort of leading into it, giving it a bit of flavor. Now, if I just play simple chords on the first beat of every bar, we're going to make our first boogie. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. Easy peasy. That was it. That was our first 12-bar boogie, concentrating on the left-hand thumb. Got it? Thumbs up. And now we're back to this side of my stomach. So now we've got the left hand sorted out. I suggest you sort of pause the video there and go and practice that yourself. Remembering that the thumb is the one doing all the work. Excuse me. So what does the right hand do? Well, the right hand can do some melodic stuff. It can do some rhythmic stuff. And we're going to start with just some simple rhythmic stuff. So we're going to take simple chords, triads, chords that belong to our harmonies for our blues. So we have a C chord. That's a 1, 3, 5 triad. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay? We do the same with an F chord or a G chord and a C chord again. Okay? We can add a bit of flavor to those chords. Now in the left hand we've got this sort of, so we've got the 5th and the 6th moving in the left hand. Why don't we add the 6th to the right hand? 1, 3, 5, 6. Same in the F chord. Same in the G chord. Yeah, we can do that. We can also add a 7th. Now the 7th, when we're talking about this kind of jazzy stuff, is always the minor 7th. It's not the major 7th. It's always the minor 7th there. Okay, 1, 3, 5, 7. So in the chord of C7, that's a B flat. In the chord of F7, it's an E flat, correct? Okay, and in the chord of G, it's an F. Okay? Now, that's a bit sort of awkward jumping around like that. What if I decide to stick my chords in between these two notes here? I'm not allowed to go below that note and I'm not allowed to go above that note. Does that work? Well, here's my C chord. Let's say C6. Okay? Now I want to play an F chord between there and there. Well, why don't I just play, so if I take my F7, for example, here's my F7 as it is here. What if I take these two notes and put them down here? Now I'm within my octave that I wanted, yeah? Back to C6. Perfect. Now I want to play a G7. So here are my G7 notes. I'll take these two from up there, I'll put them down here, and there's my G7. Okay, so I have my C6, my F7, back to my C6. Here's my G7, and I can play my C6 up here if I want. Okay, so I have a bit of movement there. Got it? A little bit of movement there. How do I interpret that then with the left hand? I could simply play fourth notes, quarter notes, sorry. Crotchets they're called, aren't they? I can just do that at the same time. That's a bit boring though, isn't it? What if I do eighth notes, quavers? It's a bit of work, that. What if I sort of mix around? What if I do some eighth notes and some quarter notes? Yeah? So what I'm doing there, I'm playing some notes with my thumb at the same time, and I'm playing some notes with my little finger at the same time. Now don't forget, that's the offbeat down there, so. Those were all offbeats there, so my thumb is playing alone, as it were, yeah? So that sounds pretty cool already. So I will improvise around just that, okay? Some on beats, some off beats. So we have our three chords, C6, F7, and G7 when it comes round, okay? Let's do that. That was pretty easy already, wasn't it? Go and practice that and come back in a minute. My wife has just reminded me it's getting dark outside. It's still winter time. It's the middle of March, and we're busy making videos at home. And the poor beast in the background. Oh, he's having a sleep actually, so we'll let the dog sleep. But anyway, he doesn't mind the piano music. He likes it. What's the next step then? We've been practicing our chords. What about a bit of melody? Well, why don't we just use the individual notes of the chords to play a melody? So instead of playing all those four notes together, why don't I split them up? And the same thing for my F7 and my G7 when the time comes around. How is that going to sound? Let's try that. Das klingt nicht so schlecht. Und zum Schluss habe ich was ganz Interessantes gemacht. Ah, scheiße. Wie kommen wir rein? Ich habe gemacht, oder? Machen wir I'm speaking German again. I just did something rather interesting at the end there by accident, but it kind of fit to what I was doing at the time, and that's I'm adding a leading note into my chordal melody, as it were. Does this make sense? I hope so. I'm trying to keep it relatively simple, but I'm showing you how to sort of throw these things together. If I take my chord and I sort of want to make it sound a bit more bluesy, then I sort of use my second finger here to sort of skim over the note below the third of the chord. Oh my God, does that make sense? So I've got my triad 1, 3, 5, not fingers 1, 3, 5, notes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's my major chord. So if I use this leading note into that third, here's the same thing in F, G, yeah. And because all jazz pianists are basically, shall we say, lazy, I'm just going to use one finger for that. So just by adding those little sort of upbeats, as it were, I'm going to play another little boogie chorus. The chorus is one sort of run through of the 12 bars. I'm going to play another one, and I'm going to use my chord notes like I did before, but this time I'm going to add this sort of upbeat from that black note, as it were, the bluesy note. Okay, so what does that sound like? It could sound something like that. Not bad, I think. Before it's too complicated, I think it's time to stop. the world of boogie woogie is a rather funny one. A lot of people out there sort of think boogie woogie is, very sort of basic, very primitive, yeah? People who play boogie woogie aren't really up to much, and they start playing a piece and it lasts for 20 minutes and doesn't really do very much. Well, it's true, there are some players out there who do go on a bit, but boogie woogie is a rather amazing style of music, and it has some rather bizarre fans throughout its history. For example, Pete Mondrian, Mondrian, the artist with his sort of cubist style and the red lines and the blue squares and things like that. Yeah, Pete Mondrian was an amazing fan of boogie woogie. I didn't know that. Now, here's a little anecdote from my personal experience. When I moved to Germany 20 years ago, I was obviously I've mentioned this before, I was in the city of Bonn, and I was involved in a church where they had a rather famous concert organ. That was St. Joseph in Bonn-Beuel. That's on the east side of the Rhine in Bonn. And there was an old guy that came to every single organ concert that took place in that church. And I got to know him a bit because after the concerts, we used to go round to the organist's house and play a bit of piano. And this guy sat down at the piano one day and started playing boogie woogie. Oh my God. So I joined him and I started playing boogie woogie with him. Now this guy, he worked for the local sort of radio station. He was a sound engineer for one of the sort of national radio companies, and he was into modern music. And when I say modern music, I mean modern classical music, right? Really way out avant-garde stuff. That was his thing, yeah. But he was a mad sort of boogie woogie guy, and he invited me to his 80th birthday party. And I said, well, I don't know anybody. He said, don't worry, come along. There's going to be hundreds of people there. We're all going to play a bit of boogie woogie. We're all going to have fun on the piano. Just come along, have a beer, enjoy it. So I turned up at this party, not knowing really anybody there, just this one guy. And people were always playing the piano, and hey, come and join in. So there were, sometimes people playing by themselves, sometimes people playing four-handed, 3 people playing six-handed, yeah, and it sort of went on like this all night. So I was sitting at the piano at one point, bopping away, and this guy came over to me and said, do you mind if I join you? Please join in. So we sat down and played four-handed. I was down here, he was up there. We swapped round, and we got our hands sort of all mixed around here, bit of up, bit of down, everything. We had a great time. We did this for about half an hour, and we were laughing and, laughing about it the whole time because it was so much fun. And this guy was really good, really good. And of course, when we stopped playing, we sort of said, oh, so right, who are you? Where do you come from? All that sort of stuff. So I told him a little bit about myself, and then I turned to him and said, so what about you? I don't know your name. And he said, oh, I'm Karl-Heinz Stockhausen. Now, Karl-Heinz Stockhausen, for those of you who don't know, was of course like the 20th century composer here in Germany, yeah? The most modern, avant-garde, way ahead of his time composer that Germany ever saw, basically, yeah? And it turned out that this guy was not only a complete boogie-woogie sort of freak, he could play it damn good as well. So I spent about half an hour of my life sitting at a grand piano at a party in Cologne with Karl-Heinz Stockhausen playing boogie woogie. Now we sort of became friends, as it were, and I sort of met him a few times, and we always sort of got to sit somewhere at a piano and had a bit of fun. And for a while, I was at the Music Academy in Cologne, and he was there doing some kind of masterclass on modern composition and things, and we bumped into each other, and he said, come on, no one's watching. And we went into a room where there was a grand piano. We sat down at the piano together and started playing, yeah? And of course, outside the room, there was a glass sort of thing, glass front to this room, and out there, some students and of course some professors sort of gathered and couldn't believe what they were seeing. Stockhausen playing boogie woogie live. So there you are. There's a little sort of bizarre anecdote on how popular the world of boogie woogie actually can be. Back to learning. Here he is. He finally arrived to come and say hello. Come and sort of generally slime around with his dad. Yes, you are very beautiful and you're very spoiled. Yeah, isn't he cute? Here's something you haven't seen yet today. This is, once again, my new CD, and you can buy it online. There's a link below to my website where you'll find our web shop where you can order the CD. Now, at the moment, we don't have an actual curfew, so we're still allowed to go out to the post office and post these things around the world. I have been doing that over the past few weeks, posting these things all around the world to the people that supported the CD project from the start, and we've pretty much got them all out. There were over 300 CDs that had to be sent at once. This is, quite an undertaking, but they're pretty much out there. But you can now get your own copy. You can order it. Now on that CD that says "Piping Hot at the Organ," we've got a couple of church organs on there, and I'm playing jazzy stuff, and I'm playing a boogie woogie on the church organ. Yes, it's true. It can be done. there's evidence of it on that recording. So I think we're going to leave it there for today. I've given you enough food for thought, as it were. We're going to close up today with, of course, a boogie woogie in the key of C. And knowing me, I'll probably modulate to another key in the middle just for fun. But I'll start it off the way we were doing it today, and I'll build it up to make it a bit more complicated because I love doing it. And yeah, don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to ring the bell for updates, and don't forget to give the video a thumbs up if you have enjoyed it. YouTube loves these things for its algorithm, apparently. And outside at the moment, there are virus things flying through the air. Maybe it's time we manage to get a viral video on this channel. Wouldn't that be cool? Thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye-bye.